Salute to you all. The brave never fall. This particular podcast will not be for everyone. Right off the bat, that's something going into it. I knew it would not be for everyone. It's something that I talk about a lot with people in real life. It's a mindset. This is strictly a mindset. The things that we talk about and cover in this particular podcast are all about the mind. Primarily, we'll talk about the other foundational things like the soul, the body, and the heart. But this machine concept that I've had going back to even my earliest days when I was a kid, and I truly mean when I was a kid, and I'll talk about how it's helped me through a lot of situations and how it can also be something that is not so much of a positive for you, that can turn into a negative if you're not careful. This type of mindset is not for everyone. It is not something that is for people who aren't prepared to go to a place within themselves that is very dark, hard, and self-imposed. These are things you do for yourself. They have nothing to do with the outside world. They're not consequential, where you think if there's something that's happening to you, the things that we talk about with this is not really going to help you if you take it to the extreme, which I mean, that's what I mean about this can be turned into a negative as well. But for the purposes of this, it's something that I've been wanting to talk about for a very long time and actually just get it out in a long form version of the explanation of it and what my mindset is, because when people ask me about it, I can't explain it in a few sentences, the mindset behind it, but people can see it in me when I'm doing certain things, and we'll just hop right into this thing. The mindset of being a machine is something that at a very young age, again, I don't know when I started developing this, but it was something that I did even when I was in elementary school. I think the earliest I can remember doing this, maybe second grade, is a number that keeps popping in my mind, that I can remember being able to, when I knew I couldn't physically do something, and it's taking me back to gym class to be even more specific. When I was a kid, I'm not a very big guy to begin with. I'm around 5'7.5", 5'8". You can even say 5'7" at times, depending on what I'm doing. Because when I shrink into myself, I get smaller. When I actually stretch out and my posture is correct, I'm hitting around 5'8". But when I graduated high school, I was 5'4", and when I was in elementary school, I was very short and tiny and frail. I just wasn't very athletic. It's amazing what I grew into when I got my man body. Finally, in college is when I got my man body. I've always had a very slow growth when it comes to that. I look extremely young for my age. I'm 40, but I look 15 years younger than I actually am, especially when I shave. It's always been something that I was aware of when I was a kid. I saw other kids who were bigger than me and were faster than me and stronger than me. And I knew the only way I could compete with these kids, because I've always had a competitive fire in me, I didn't give up. I didn't like being embarrassed when I couldn't perform a task or I couldn't go hard at a game, because I'm very competitive. I never was athletic back then. I was always in the game, but I had a hard time combining all the elements. If it was a physical aspect of it that I got, the mental aspect of it I didn't get. I concentrated so much on being good at the game. Sometimes I didn't even understand the rules half the time, or I wouldn't work on a particular skill set to make me great at it or better than other kids. I was always just doing enough to get by because I was afraid to fail in front of people. I was very shy, introverted, extremely introverted, unsure of myself, had no confidence at all. And I went all the way up into high school, and I didn't really get true confidence into myself until I was in college, where I was off on my own and started developing some skills that helped me. And I kind of grew into the version of myself that I wanted to be, the version of myself that I always hoped I would be. I wanted to be taller than 5'4", and I actually got taller than that in college. I had a very late growth spurt. And the mindset behind how I got through all those times where I was hating myself for how short I was, how skinny I was. I was like 130 pounds when I was in high school. I was just a toothpick. And I wanted to do sports. I actually started. I was a musician. I got along with everyone. I played basketball. I never played on the team or whatever, but outside of it, when I went out and played basketball very hard. Still to this day, I'm very good at basketball. But I was just never tall enough to actually compete with people. I wasn't strong enough. And that used to piss me off so bad. It used to piss me off because it was physically nothing I could do. I started lifting weights. I remember asking my mother when I was 16 years old, I'm like, all I want for Christmas is a weight set. I need a barbell and I need some weights because I cannot take this skinny thing. And I pumped, like, I just was trying to get nothing. I just could not put on muscle. I was eating around the clock to try to get bigger. Nothing was happening. I just didn't know what was happening. But eventually, all those weights that I lifted finally showed up when I was in college, and I started getting jacked. And that mindset carried over into boxing, which I did for a while. And eventually, it carried over to me wanting to be a personal trainer. Now, I still do personal training with people. I want to work my way up, especially I'm in the National Academy of Sports Medicine. I want to keep working my way up to a master personal trainer, and because I'm very heavily influenced about the mind, the body, and how everything works together. And a lot of that mindset came back from when it originated back when I was younger, when I didn't have all of those physical tools that I have now. And the only way I knew I can get through it, going back to when I was in second grade, I specifically remember back in the 80s. See, kids now are more sheltered. There's certain things I don't even let my son watch. He just is not allowed to watch certain things because of violence or whatever. Even the content, if there's too many scenes in there that I don't agree with, he's not watching it until I know he's mentally prepared to watch it. Now, he does have moderate autism, and that plays a bit of a part in it because he is extremely smart. He takes things in, and he mimics things very well, and I want to limit what he mimics. But for my purposes, back when I was younger, they didn't do diagnosis for ADHD and ADD, and I had attention deficit disorder very bad. Wasn't diagnosed. I was diagnosed with it when I was an adult, but I had already figured out how to deal with it now. But when I was younger, back in the 80s, I was in second grade. I think that was 87 when I was in second grade. So back then, they didn't diagnose you with things like that. They just said you're falling behind. You're lazy. No joke. And I was falling behind in my math and my reading back then, and it wasn't for a lack of effort. I gave all the effort in the world. I just learned differently, and I had a hard time paying attention in class because my mind was always wandering off. I was always thinking about something else. And I remember, because I am a film student and I love film, and my ultimate goal in life is to become associated with, maybe even produce and own my own film company at some point in my life, later on in life. It's one of my ultimate goals, but I've always loved film. I lived in a pretty bad neighborhood. My mother, who worked at General Motors at the time, would leave me at home, and there was a video store down the street, and I would go and I would rent movies to pass the time because we weren't allowed to go outside when she wasn't there. So I watched movies, and this is back when you're 7 years old, you can walk up with a rated R movie, and he would hand it to you because he knew you and your parents, and nobody gave a shit. So you would walk out with it. And one of the movies I loved was Terminator. Arnold Schwarzenegger. Loved that movie. Really loved that movie. And another movie that I loved was RoboCop. Now, if you ever seen either one of those movies, you know exactly why I would say it's like, you can imagine a 7-year-old sitting down and watching this over and over and over again. To this day, I can repeat every line in those movies. And Terminator 2 was another one of my favorites. But what is the theme between those two? There's cyborgs. RoboCop and the Terminator are cyborgs. They're machines. They look like people, but they're machines. They're more machine than man. They were built for a reason. They got after their purpose with determination, resilience. There was nothing to stop them. They knew what they had to do. And somehow I picked that ideal up and ran with it as a kid. I always envisioned myself being a cyborg, as weird as it sounds. For a kid, I never told anybody this. This is actually the first time I'm verbalizing this out loud to anyone. And I'm 40 years old. This is the first time I've ever told anybody. This is how I got through a lot of situations when I was younger, and I've done it till this day. First time I've ever said this. This is weird for me. This is why I wanted to make this, because it's helped some people already. I haven't told people my mindset behind it, but this is how I got this mindset of going to get after it. And it, instead of me approaching the game, if I'm in gym class and we have to do something this is again back in the 80s, where your gym teacher was almost like your football coach. They would yell at you as if there was something on the line. And we did hard stuff. You're doing rope climbs, you're lifting weights, you're doing 100 sit-ups a day, you're running a mile a day. Gym class was very hard back when I was a kid. Not so much now for kids nowadays, but back when I was in gym class, it was like boot camp every single day. You had gym class every single day. I specifically remember us having some type of gym activity every single day. And even if it was, every school's different, but obviously schools would cycle through activities, but we had it a lot. It was a big part of our curriculum back then. And it was a big school district, and they had a lot of athletic programs in the school district. So they wanted to push out as many athletes in district as possible. You did that in gym class. I actually love them for that. I thank them for that, because those early years of my life made me tough and athletic. I would not be a marathon runner right now, I don't believe, if I didn't go through what I went through in that school. And it translated outside of that with all my friends. We were always running around, playing basketball, playing football, boxing. We did everything. You just grew up in an environment where you had to be tough. You had to be strong. If you cried, you lost all your friends. There was no crying. Like Tom Hanks said in there is no crying in baseball. There was no crying in my circle of friends. So because I was weak, and I was always the type of kid where I could endure pain. That's one thing I always knew I could do. I could endure pain. I didn't shy away from it. When it happened, I would take it, and I knew then, I'm like, if I can endure this pain, it's going to make me stronger, because I know these guys can't do it. And I had that mindset even at age 7. So this machine cyborg aspect of it, I viewed myself as almost like a tool, like an apparatus. And I thought I could get more power out of this if I actually wasn't human. So I would just go through the motions hard. I would just envision, you're not tired. You can't be hurt. You don't feel anything. You're going to push forward like the Terminator and RoboCop with your purpose. Your goal right now is to play this game as hard as everyone else, as fast as everyone else. If you fail, so what? I had that mentality at age 7. That's the earliest, and I might have had it before then, but that's the earliest I can remember it. Because I specifically remember a day in gym class where I was asked to climb a rope, and I was not very strong. And I didn't get all the way up to the top of this rope climb, but I got much farther than I thought I could. And all I did was envision myself being a machine, a cyborg. I'm like, you're not human. You don't feel any of this. The Terminator or RoboCop will be able to climb this. I don't know about RoboCop. He's a little stiff. But the Terminator could climb this rope. You do it. Do it now. And once I got some success with that, I rolled with it. It didn't give me the kind of confidence you would think. Because I know a lot of people would say, well, if that's the case, then why were you still so unsure of yourself? It doesn't give you confidence in that way. It's something you fall back on when you start feeling like you're weak and you can't make it, and you're like, oh, this is bad. I'm about to fail in front of everyone. I'm going to be embarrassed. They're going to start laughing at me. I got to do something. That's when it would kick in. Remember, I was a kid at the time, and a lot of this I wasn't turning on all the time automatically. It was just something I had fallen back on in my imagination. It was something that got me through. And I was so scared of failing, I would play. If I knew I had gym class that day and I knew what I was going to be doing in gym class, I would spend 2 hours before that planning on what I'm going to do so I don't be embarrassed. Now, I should be concentrating on my schoolwork, but I wasn't. I was more worried about how I was going to perform in gym class. I was more worried about who I was going to play with at recess, because that's how my mind worked back then. And I used to try to tell everyone that. And people thought, oh, no, you're just being lazy. You're not paying attention. I just had high anxiety about all the wrong things back then. And that's completely understandable nowadays, because we have a diagnosis for kids who have these issues. They didn't back then. I didn't know what was wrong with me. I just thought I was stupid, to be honest. I actually thought I was dumb. And I didn't do well in school for a while. I did well enough but I always knew I could do better. I could read just fine. I just got sidetracked all the time. I, to this day, am not very good at math. It's something I still work at, but math is just not one of my strong suits. Not Ralph. I've gotten so much better than I used to be, but math for me was a mind thing, and I wanted to conquer that. That was actually one of my fears all the time, was that I couldn't do well in math. I actually knocked that off. Actually, I'm pretty good at math now, because it was something that I struggled with because I just didn't understand it, so I feared it. You fear what you don't understand. So the whole point of being a machine, now we're getting into being an adult and how you can apply this. How I approach every situation is from the mindset of a machine. The definition of a machine, if you look it up, I just went to Google. It's an apparatus using or applying mechanical power and having several parts, each with a definite function and together performing a particular task. It's an apparatus using or applying mechanical power and having several parts, each with a definite function and together performing a particular task. That's just a long-winded way of saying using something to your advantage, gaining more of yourself through something else. So, why walk to work when you can drive a car? That's what a lot of people say. But if you really want to, I always tell people, if you're within a mile of where you work, you should walk to work. If you're within 5 miles of where you work, you should ride your bike to work. I recommend that for anybody, especially if you're losing weight. There you go. Brave never fall, little tip for the day, if that's the case. I wish I lived closer to work so I could do that. I hate driving. If I could not have a car for the rest of my life, I would. I would love to walk or ride my bike everywhere. That would be heaven for me. But being a machine, that mindset helps. Now, this is where we'll dive a little bit into how this can be a pro for you. This mindset will give you armor. It is something that will give you a little bit of extra mental focus to get through a task. It hardens you up because you're basically telling your body you don't feel anything, you have more to give, and you have a purpose. Execute that purpose. Get the job done now, quickly, efficiently, with power. You're going to put everything into this. You want this done immediately. The Terminator doesn't waste time. He comes in, if he sees his target, he eliminates them. Now, that sounds harsh, but that's what he does. And that's how I saw things. It's one of the reasons why I became such a good boxer. I took that mindset into the ring, and I thought, I want this guy out of my way as quickly as possible, but efficiently and as smart as possible. I'll size him up, get a reading on what he's doing. I'll throw out a few little things that I want him to believe that I believe is one of my strengths. And then when he's not ready, I will pour it on. But I'm also going to do something he's not really ready for. And that's going to be, I'm not going to get tired. That was my whole thing. I don't care how long that fight goes. I know you're going to be tired at some point. And I can endure more than you. And I don't want you to hit me. So my defense is better. I was much more worried about my defense and getting out of the way and being smart about it and making sure at some point I take you out. Because I wanted to make sure everybody who fought me knew that I had the capability of knocking them out and outworking them. And you can't hit me. And that took me a long way. And if it wasn't for my back, I was very close to being on the verge of being a professional boxer. But my back just started giving out on me. And I had a hernia, a really bad hernia surgery, groin hernia surgery, which just limit my training capability at the time. And I chose, and the head trauma thing, I just didn't want to, I wasn't the biggest guy in the world, so I was fighting guys bigger than me. So I made a choice to just kind of move away from that. And I'm very certainly glad I did. Running is much more easier on my brain and my body. But that mindset can be taken to anything. I also took that mindset into the workplace. And I thought like a machine. You're hiring me to do a task. My task is not to make sure that everyone around here likes me. I'm going to pick a target. And I used to always do this. The easiest way when you get a job, whatever department you're in, whoever is your supervisor or the best worker, because sometimes the best worker is not always your supervisor, find out immediately who is the best worker. Who cares if it's a nice person? Who cares if you like this person, how old they are, how much they make? Doesn't matter. Who is what this job considers to be the most exemplary worker? You take that worker, you scan them like the Terminator or RoboCop, and for the first week and a half to 2 weeks, just mimic them. Just do everything like them, even if you believe they're doing it wrong or you know you can do it better, or it's tiring and it's wearing you out. Do it exactly like the person who is the best. And then you say, okay, once you get it down, they're like, hey, you're doing a great job. It's like, of course I am. Because if you think he's doing a good job or she's doing a good job, I'm matching that right now. But I have one thing. Try to find one thing about what they're doing that you can do better, faster, and longer. It works every time. I've applied that to every job. You will move up the ladder so quick, it's not even funny. Because what they're looking at is not so much your mind, your physical work that you're doing. They're looking at your mindset of, this dude wants to go after it. This lady is going after it. She is going hard. She wants this guy's job, even if you don't. They'll start calling upon you to do extra tasks. Next thing you know, you're making more money. You've been promoted within 6 months. Every job I've been to, I've been promoted with that mindset far faster than anybody that I've seen come in with the same job position, because I purposely, day one, go into the job doing that. I do that at every single job. And again, that's that scanning thing. The same thing when I was in the ring with the boxer. I would scan him, kind of match what he's doing, thinking he's, okay, this guy's on my level. That's what he's thinking. He's just like me. I can do whatever. And I'm knowing in the back of my mind, I got some things I haven't shown you. I'm gonna match you, but at some point I'm gonna be more efficient than you. I'm gonna be harder than you, and I'm gonna take you out. And that was the mindset. Being a musician, I did the same thing. I would mimic trumpet player. I'm a trumpet player, and I play other instruments, but songwriting is all the same thing. I would mimic things, figure out how to do it, and then I would find ways to add my own flair to it, my own touch that is natural, but just a notch higher than what that person or that thing is at that particular time. You're just raising the bar. You're doing an upgrade, a software upgrade on your cybernetic organism that you've kind of, quote unquote, that you've added. You're machine-like in a way when you do that. You're no different than a computer. You're having all these upgrades and you're learning stuff. Your mind is constantly processing new ways to do it. And it doesn't really take a lot of effort, because there's no downside to it. Because if you mimic the best worker and you can do exactly what they're doing, that's very comfortable in itself. You really don't have to raise the bar if you don't want to. Even if you're doing what they're doing, if that person was to leave, you're going to get that position. They already see you can do exactly what this person can do. You already put yourself in that position within 2 weeks of being on the job. Again, you have a target. You're eliminating and executing your target. You're just trying to figure out, what can I do to make sure that whatever I'm doing in this task, it's done as quickly and as efficiently as possible. And if you can have that mindset, it translates into almost everything. I started applying that to college when I would go take courses, which is why I was a much better student in college than I was when I was in high school and when I was in elementary school, middle school, because I had the mindset. Unfortunately, it came a little bit later in college than I would like. But once I started really recognizing that I can apply that mindset not only to physical activity, but to mental activities as well. So it wasn't just about the workplace, and it wasn't just about the sports. It was also about relationships. You can apply that to relationships as well. And that's when I got into wanting to learn more about people, because that's what a Terminator would do. He would scan the environment trying to find his target, and through scanning, you learn about people. And then you get to pick and choose who you want. I shouldn't say targets, but you get to pick and choose the targets you want to be in your life. People that are good for you. Now, when I was younger, when you're learning, like a computer, you have to put in all the information in the computer. You don't start out with a computer that's already ready to go. Somebody has to build that computer. And your computer in your mind, you have to build it. You have the tools to choose what you want to put into your computer, which is your mind. What does your CPU want to be filled with? What do you want to fill your hard drive with? Because you do have limited data and memory. Your mind does have a limit, and you can only fill it with so much at a time without getting overloaded. So you have to be very precise and accurate and down to the point about what you want in your life and how you approach it and what your mindset is with it. And if you go through it with the thing, like with the mindset as if you're constantly only letting in things that are positive, that make sense, that are going to benefit you, that is not a waste of time and is not a distraction, you're going to be better. Now, when I first started figuring out that I can translate that machine cyborg type stuff from the physical body to the mind, that's when the game changed. However, that took a long time to figure out because that's very hard. Having a machine-like mind is extremely hard because you are forced to go into areas in your mind and process things, and once you start doing this, you start getting clarity on things, and then it kind of in a way starts making you act a little different. And that's why I say this is when you can get into the negatives of this for people on the outside looking into you. It's not so much for you. I benefit from this, I think, pretty well. But there's going to be some things you're going to have to come to terms with. Once I started figuring this out, I started realizing, okay, I don't want distractions in my life. If you have a computer, you don't want a computer full of bullshit. You want to get rid of all that. You want to keep the important stuff. You want to be able to have it organized, and you want to be able to find it quickly. You want to be able to utilize the information that you have stored as quickly as possible. You don't want your videos to be lagging behind. You don't want a bad picture. You don't want spam. You don't want viruses. You don't want all that stuff. You want a nice, clean, organized, updated software computer that's adaptable to any new development that pops into it. So you're constantly upgrading it. And you can't have a computer from 1980 and run what we run today on it. You have to constantly be aware of when it's time to upgrade your software. And I always looked at that as experiences in life causes you to upgrade. Your location where you're working at, things cause you to upgrade. Your relationships with people, all these things will cause you to upgrade. The problem is with it is that it does require you to kind of shut down and examine all this stuff. And it's almost like you're rebooting the computer. You have to take time, which is why meditation and reflection is so important to my self-discipline, is because that reflection time is me rebooting, upgrading software, and when I get turned back on, now it's time to go with a new set of directives. And some people don't like that because when it comes back on, I know immediately you're gone. Enough of you, enough of this, enough of that. And it's harsh to people on the outside looking in. However, take the cyborg machine stuff out of it. Where that's coming from is self-love for myself. It's me not trying to survive in life, but I want to thrive in it. It's coming from that place. It's coming from, this is a temporary inconvenience for people who don't understand it. This is why I never told anyone about the mindset of me having this cyborg machine-like aspect to it. You know, I understand how people would perceive it. It's like, well, you can't just do that. You're not a machine. Yeah, you can actually just do that. I do it all the time. It's just when you put it in the context of, I get it from the mindset of being more machine-like and knowing when, because like your phone or your computer, it will tell you when you have a virus. It's telling you, get rid of this thing if you want to keep me. That's what you have to do for yourself. Your mind and your body is saying, get rid of this person if you want to be disciplined. Get rid of this person or this thing if you want to be happy. If you want to have, for people who want to be comfortable, you're never going to be comfortable if you don't upgrade your software, if you don't get rid of viruses, if you don't eliminate spam, if you don't detect bullshit. If you stop to, mute some messages from people, things like that. You have to have a machine, a computer, your software, all has to run efficiently with purpose. Otherwise, what is the point of owning a computer if it's just a jumbled, crumbled disaster? You don't want that for yourself. You have to view yourself like that. And the more you clean yourself up and get rid of all the distractions in your mind and your body, things start looking better. You start understanding, okay, this person is not necessarily so good in my life. Oh, this person's awesome. I didn't even realize how awesome a person you were. I need you to stick around. Same with workplaces and schools and family members. All those things. It's all very important. It's important for you to make sure that you're ready to accept the right things and avoid the wrong things. And as we head into intermission, remember, everything and everyone in this world is connected. The definition of a cyborg is physical abilities that are extended beyond normal human limitations by mechanical elements built into the body and mind. And you can look at them almost like artificial implants. So you're just always working on the body and the mind, making it more adaptable to any situation, just as you would a machine. Your car has to be serviced. You have to always upgrade your house and upgrade your lifestyle if you want to eventually adapt and what people say, keep up with the Joneses. You have to always be adapting. So people, you're doing this anyway. Everyone's doing an aspect or element of this type of idea anyway. What sets apart people who are doing this subconsciously is the people who are doing it consciously. The people who are looking at it, I'm not the only one who does this. This can be interpreted very differently depending on who you talk to. There are some people who say this is very animal, primitive qualities. It's a survival instinct. There's people out there who get after it. And you'll talk to me, it's like, I have the heart of a lion. That helps that person do the exact same thing that I'm doing. But I'm not that person. And it's all an interpretation, which is why I always say be a machine, quote unquote, a machine. Because no one's asking you to become a mechanical monster. No one's asking you to become an automaton. We're just saying there are aspects of that type of mindset that are going to help you in life, because it turns on all those receptors that you take for granted sometimes, that kind of get left behind, that you're just not focusing on. Focus. A machine is focused on the task. You put in something into the Google machine, it looks up what you want, period. So you have to, that's how we want our phone. Like when you press the phone to call someone, you expect it to do it. You don't want excuses from your phone. You don't want your phone to shut off. You don't want your phone to run out of power. You don't want a bad connection. You want your phone to run perfectly. You should expect the same from your body. People actually expect their cars and their homes and their devices to run better than their own bodies. If you expect that from them, just think about how your life would be differently if you expected the same high standard for yourself. If you treat your mind and your body like you do all the other things that are important in your life, especially material things, you'd be shocked about the results you would get. But you also have to think about the mindset behind it and why I or anyone would use this. It's because you are trying to reach the best version of yourself possible. So there is a purpose behind it. If you're really dedicated to changing your life in certain aspects, you're going to need an intense focus. You're going to have to get down to bare minimum focus with these things. No distractions. That's a side of people that a lot of people don't like. Again, getting back to the negatives with this mindset. Because it is just a mindset. It's an approach. And from the outside looking in, it does look very cold to some people. They just don't understand how can you get to a point where you can make a blatant decision and stand by it and you still are okay with it and you don't seem to care what anyone thinks about it. And I tell people, do you know what self-love is? Because that's all it is. It's self-love coupled with some self-discipline. But ultimately, going back to the core, the self-discipline is stacked on top of the self-love. You can't get the self-discipline without self-love. Not a true version of it. There's people who they're very disciplined about a lot of things, but they're not the right things. They're things that are actually hurting people and hurting themselves. So yeah, you can have discipline about a lot of things. There are people who are disciplined about all kinds of things. That doesn't mean it's the right things. Through self-love, you find out what the right things are. Self-loathing, you find out what the wrong things are. Or you have a manipulative, narcissistic mentality. Those things are scary when you have somebody who's like that, who are malevolent in a way that is unexplainable. You just don't understand, why is this person so cold, evil, distant, and just doesn't care? This won't work for these people. And that's where you want to avoid going to, because a version of this can lead you to that in a way. Self-discipline is, you have to be very careful with it when you don't have purpose behind it. True definition of purpose behind self-discipline, because you can be disciplined about being lazy. You could be disciplined about being selfish. You could be disciplined about being hurtful. It's just a pattern. It's repetition. It's a routine. So it's about being conscious enough to know, like a cyborg, or that's why when we're talking about machines, we're not just talking about an automaton or just a robot standing there and just waiting to be programmed, a computer. We're talking about a cybernetic, an artificial intelligence type thing. It's not what we're talking about here. Here's the definition of artificial intelligence: development, for this sakes and purposes, development of computer systems able to perform tasks that are normally require human intelligence, such as visual perception, speech recognition, decision-making, communication skills, etc., etc. That's a computer. You see that one sentence there, performs tasks that normally require human intelligence. That's not what the cybernetic organism definition was. The cyborg definition was physical abilities are extended beyond normal human limitations. Beyond normal human limitations, meaning the human presence is required for the cybernetic organism to function. So you don't want to be an artificial intelligence. You don't want to be intelligent artificially, if you look at it that way. You don't want to be a fake artificial construct. You want to be, if you're going to do the cyborg thing, the good thing about the cyborg thing is that you still have your human qualities to it. Now, RoboCop is an extreme example, or the Terminator, because they're built on basically, like, the Terminator is basically a robot with a human frame. It's a computer, but the ideal is there. It's a science fiction movie. Let's not get carried away here. But RoboCop was a human being who essentially died and was brought back to life in a zombie-like way, and it was enhanced with cybernetic stuff. If you want to take it one step further, you go to the Justice League. There's a guy whose literal name is Cyborg. He's just a human being. Again, he came close to death and was saved through having artificial enhancements. We see this in life already. When somebody has an arm amputated and they get an artificial arm, what do you think that person kind of is? They're kind of like a cyborg. You had an artificial cybernetic extended benefit that most human beings don't have. I was listening to Elon Musk on Joe Rogan's podcast, and he was talking about cyborgs, and he basically told Joe Rogan, we are cyborgs already. The point that we got to where our phones became miniature computers that we take around with us everywhere. We have all our bank information on it, all our contact information on it, all our messages. Our whole lives are on our computers, which are in our hands now. Used to be in our offices, in our schools. Now they're in our hands. And most people who have a cell phone can't go a day without their cell phone. Literally can't. I know I cannot. No, I shouldn't say I cannot. I could, but it depending on what I was doing that day. If I was on vacation and I could just turn it off and put it down, yeah, I can. But a regular work day, Wednesday during the week, with people need to contact me, and I gotta get this done, I gotta get that done. It's essential. If you can't put it down and it's an extension of you and it's a machine, you are basically a cyborg. Because if a question pops in your mind and you don't know the answer to it, and you have your phone in your hand and you can get the answer immediately, and you upgraded your mind through information that didn't come from your mind but from a source, but it was connected to your body and never leaves your body, what do you call that? That is a cybernetic enhancement. So we're essentially on the verge of being cybernetic organisms physically. Forget the mental mindset of it. So the concept of it is not as strange as you may think. It is for the mind, I mean. Because now there are no more excuses really for people to be, I hate to say this, to be ignorant and uninformed about things. Because you can get information anytime you want on your phone. Which is why I say it's so easy to learn something new in today's society, because all you have to do is just pick up your phone and speak a couple words into it. You don't even have to type. And you're going to get all kinds of videos and articles and news about whatever you decide to pick up as a topic. You're going to get all of these things at a moment's notice, and you can get smarter. There's no excuse for people not to be smarter when you have a cell phone in your hand. And if all you're doing is looking at social media and you're not learning anything, I would say, I hope you're not paying too much for your phone, because I feel like my phone is a bargain. People always, you pay too much for your phone. I like the expensive phones because for me, I'm constantly looking up information. I'm trying to create things. I actually do use it to the point where I do feel like I'm a cyborg with it. I know that's not for everyone, but I always feel like it's a bargain for the amount of stuff I learn every day versus what I have to pay for this phone per month. To me, it's almost like it's free because every day I'm learning new stuff. I'm trying to figure out new things of how to do things better that I already felt like I was good at. I'm like, oh, there's always room for improvement. How can I communicate with someone better? How can I listen to someone better? How can I help someone better? What new things can I do for myself that I pay other people to do? Things like that. Anybody who's close to me knows this. I don't go a month without going on a job interview. I have to. I'm always looking for a new job. I'm fine where I'm at, but why sell myself short? I'm sitting here making a certain amount of money, but there's somebody out there who might be willing to pay me 10 times as much if I just talk to the right person. How do you know if you don't do it? All I got to do is pick up my phone on my break for 10 minutes and go on Indeed, look up some stuff, apply for some jobs, answer some phone interviews. You never know. I do it all the time. I will never stop doing that. I'm always going to be looking for the next best thing. Now, you don't want to do that with things that are great in your life. You find a special someone, you want to keep that person. You find a great job that you love to do and it doesn't seem like work, you might want to keep that. It's good to look for other side stuff. But if that's your primary thing and you love to do it and it's something that was on your priority list that gives you purpose in your life, that validates your existence, then of course you should stay there. But that machine aspect of it prevents me from doing it. Prevents me from staying in stasis on top of a hill, just standing there as a robot rusting out next to a tree. It's just not what I would like to do. I'm constantly scanning the terrain for mountains, easier paths to get to certain flags of hope that I can see on the horizon. You want to get to your goal as quickly as possible if you can and learn as much as you can, but sometimes life doesn't do that. So you have to be prepared to pick up all that information along the way and enjoy the ride. You want to enjoy this a little bit. Won't be enjoyable all the time, but life is supposed to be somewhat enjoyable. And that's why I say you have to detach the cyborg at that point. Let's get back into the pros of this thing. The good thing about being a cyborg in the mindset is that you can turn it on and off whenever you want. You're not a physical cyborg where if you have an artificial heart, you can't just say, well, I'm done with this. I'd just rather have a normal heart now. It doesn't work like that. But with the mind, it's a mindset. That mindset is the difference. You can turn it on and off, just like your armor that protects yourself, your armor of knowledge and strength and spirituality. If you have all those things, your empathy you have for people, your compassion, all that armor you have for yourself, you can put that armor on and off anytime you want. And that machine-like mindset is the same way. I turn it on when I need it. I turn it off when I don't. I turn it off when I don't need it. The people who go too far with it is the ones who can't shut it off. And it becomes a detriment in their relationships, in their workplace, because they become too competitive at work. They become too cold and machine-like in their relationships. They don't have the ability to listen to other people and be empathetic with them and have patience with them because they're just constantly laser focused, ready to terminate. They'll stomp over anybody to get to where they want to be. There's a definition for that. It's called narcissism. They'll manipulate and bribe and lie to wherever they need to be to get to where they want to go. Which is why when you get back to the programming and the software updating of it, somewhere along the way, those people had the right mindset and they lost themselves on the wrong path. They upgraded the wrong software. They didn't eliminate enough viruses. They opened up too many spam messages in their emails. And you get somebody who is dysfunctional, outdated, and completely unaware of their existence in being that way. Because if you ever get an old computer, the computer doesn't know that it's outdated. You know that it is, but the computer is just running along like, what's the problem? It's what they programmed me to do. You fix me. I don't know how to do it myself. And I see that in people. They just need some help. Hey, brother. Hey, sister. Let's have a little chat. You're out of line. I've had people have to do that to me. That's how I know where you can go down the line with this the wrong way. I did that for a long time. I took the machine mindset to a point and it affected my relationships. It affected my workplace. I was so sure of myself that I became arrogant. I was blind to the fact that I had opened up too many spam folders. I was getting way too many viruses. I had way too many things distracting me. I wasn't functioning at a high level. I thought I was, and in certain cases I was, but at the wrong things at the wrong time. My priorities were out of whack. My purpose was out of whack. My model, quote unquote, of computer was outdated and needed to be fixed. It not only didn't need to be fixed, but it needed to be refurbished or thrown away, and it just needed to be completely rebuilt. And that's what I did. But it took a lot of failure and a lot of disappointment and me letting people down. And it is something I don't necessarily regret a lot of it, because at the time I thought it was the right thing to do. And a lot of subconsciously, you always believe it's the right thing to do. But it taught me a lot. I do regret that I wasn't aware of it as I am now. And the people that I affected, I have apologized to those people, and I hope they forgive me, because I was out of line. But the important thing is that you always have a choice to turn it on and off. And after a while, I turned it off, and I turned it off for a while. And I said, let's get back to something wholesome. Step away from the machine. You don't know how to use that properly. That's too much power for you that you don't understand. That mindset is dangerous for you at this point in time. And what I did was I got away from that, and I started picking up new things, and I started getting into Tao, the Tao religion, and the philosophy of Tao, and started getting back to learn how to meditate, how to be more organic. And I thought, if I can take that and have that be my core, but still have the ability to pull out that computer and turn it on and off and upgrade myself and have that mindset, then if you can figure out a way to turn it on and off whenever you want, then you're good. Same with the armor. I was too sheltered and armored up for a while. I had to figure out how are you going to develop a way to be able to pick up that armor and put it down when needed. You don't need it on all the time. A knight does not need his armor on all the time. You don't, if you have a computer or a phone, it doesn't need to be on all the time. You can't turn it off. I had to figure that out the hard way, and I did. It's very important. That's where balance comes into this whole equation, because you have to know when to turn it on and off. And if you do it long enough, you do it subconsciously. And that's where I'm at now. I know at a moment's notice, when it's time for me to turn on the intensity, it comes right on. Now, unfortunately, because you can do this, it is a great thing to have, but eventually, just like a computer, you are going to have days where you just shut down and you're not going to work right. And that happens. It's going to happen. I would say once a year, it happens, but that's no different than somebody having a mental breakdown, somebody having a panic attack, it's the same thing. We're just using a different term of shutdown. But essentially, it's just you just need to rest, reboot, reflect, and come back with a new outlook, a new purpose. I just happen to do that quicker than a lot of people do. It's hard for people to understand. But if you can develop anything in your life, I would say this about this mindset. One of the things I recommend it to you, to put the machine stuff aside, and let's look at the human quality about it. What this mindset is you understanding and being aware of who you are, and starting with a brick of foundation of self-love, and getting yourself some self-discipline, and taking baby steps on your journey, and stop with the big long strides, because you're running past stuff and you're running blind. You're not looking around and seeing what's all around you. And you're not pushing yourself hard enough. This mindset requires you to not be lazy. You always need to be learning something every day. When you say you're going to work out, go work out. And throw some extra in every single time you do it. If you say you're going to cook a meal, cook it efficiently. If you're going to be in a relationship, be all in and don't make excuses or move on from it. These are the things that mindset creates for you. It puts things in perspective. You have to have your priorities straight to make this work properly. It's not easy. You're supposed to push yourself hard with this mindset. You want to find out what you're made of, who you are. You want to say, I see this person over here. I think I can do better. That's not arrogance. That's just you testing yourself. You don't have to walk up to the person to say that. It's not like I'm walking around saying, hey, I want to be the best worker here. I'm going to mimic this guy and I'm going to kick his ass in 2 weeks. That's not what I'm talking about. This is all internal. That's why I said I never told anyone about this mindset of the cyborg, because you lose a lot of its power when you go around telling everyone about it. The only reason why I'm bringing it up here is because I have people walk up to me all the time and ask me, where do I get my work ethic from? How am I so self-disciplined? How can I bounce back from things that are going bad? And I tell them very easily, it's because I know when to turn on and off that intensity. I kick into gear that machine-like quality. I know when my armor has to go up and defend myself. I know when to drop it. But the only way I knew how to get there is I had to put myself in very uncomfortable situations. I had to prioritize and know what things were good in my life and what things weren't. And the only way you can do that is you have to push yourself to want to be a better person. You have to want. It has to be a focal point. When you say you're going to do something, try to exceed every single thing that you do. Don't be content with how smart you are. Keep learning. Don't be content with how fit you are. Keep up your good health. Get even healthier. You can't be content with just being in a relationship. You have to also accept everything about this person. Contentment doesn't work with this mindset. Being comfortable does not work with this mindset. There is an uncomfortable struggle that you have to have within you that you're willing to accept and overcome anything. That's why I said on the outset of this that this is not for everyone. It's not. It's a dedicated, disciplined, determined, resilient mindset that no matter what you do, when you wake up every day, you start a day with a victory, you go to bed knowing that you experience a full day no matter what, or you failed that day. It's hard for people to understand, but the good thing about it is it's not for everyone to understand. It's a mindset that you adopt for yourself and you execute it. The people who understand it will be in your life. The people who don't, they'll walk away. But the people who understand it, and there are people who do, they're rare. They're very rare. But the ones that do have this mindset are the ones that I notice they validate everything that I'm thinking and everything that I'm saying here, is because I know I'm not alone. For a long time, that's why I never said anything about this, because I think people also think that it translates over to immediate success. Well, if you're so determined and you're such a cyborg, how come you're still in this? It doesn't determine success, because each person is different. It's still based in reality. It's still based on reacting to things that are happening to you that you know are going to happen and that you don't know is going to happen. It's still based on outside influences having to come into your life and you have to make decisions. It's still based on relationships that you have no control over in a lot of cases. It's based on you controlling all the aspects of your life that you can control and how well you do it. How prideful you are about putting your name on something and being proud of it. If you're going to put your name on something, you better do it well. You better go above and beyond it, because your name is on it. You'll be forever linked to whatever your name's attached to, regardless if it's a relationship, family members, your work environment, any activity you get involved in, anything you want to create. If your name's attached to it, you should go 110%. With this mindset, you just don't have time for bullshit. From people, from places, or from things. You understand your place in the world. You understand that you're connected to everything around you. And you know you have a purpose. And when you figure that out, all of that is going to come back to that self-love and that self-discipline, which will give you that machine-like quality. But again, you could turn it on and off. You just know it's there. And it gives you confidence and strength and power. Because you know you're going to need that to get over these hard situations. You also know that you can be alone and you don't have to rely on other people to get you out of things. You're going to face your problems no matter what. Or who's beside you, behind you, in front of you, it doesn't matter. It's your life. Your life. And the people who are around you are looking at you and they're judging you. I say don't worry about them. You just worry about what you're doing. If you're too intense for someone, that's not your problem. It's not your job to make sure everyone on the planet understands you. It's only the people who are invested in you as much as you are invested in them that have that right. You have to know your value. You have to know your worth. You have to be based in a foundation of self-love, even when it's wavering. There are days where we all doubt ourselves, where we all get down on ourselves, where we all feel like we're not powerful enough, we're not strong enough, we need help. Your help is going to come from yourself. That's when I turn it on. I need help. I turn on the switch. Machine, time to go, focus, determination, discipline, no excuses. There's your help. Your help is right there inside of you. It's beating right in your chest. Your help is your presence, your essence, your soul. You have to help yourself first. You have to have some inner strength, some resolve, purpose, and outlook. But you have to be brave and bold about it. That's why I would say the brave never fall. Brave and bold. You got to know when to turn that switch on. And for the people who don't know how to do that, there are ways where, again, some people have their own thing. This person's a lion, this person's a shark, this person's an octopus, this person's a bird. We all have our ways of going to that next level. This was my way. There are people out there who ask how I do it. This is how I do it. It's a mindset. The mindset of something you can turn on and off when needed. It's reliable, it's upgradable, it's adaptable, it's understandable, it's relatable, and it affects every aspect of life that you're going to encounter. Every aspect. It's useful. It's a mindset of purpose and self-discipline based on a foundation of self-love. And if no one has told you this today, I love you. You deserve to hear that. Salute to you all. The brave never fall.